The morning sun filtered through the vast windows of LaGuardia Airport, casting a warm glow on the bustling terminal. Among the travelers was a young black woman named Amara Johnson, her vibrant energy and confident stride catching the attention of everyone she passed. Amara was dressed impeccably in a sharp, teal blazer and matching slacks, her hair styled into sleek braids that framed her determined face. She carried a leather laptop bag, a sign that she was not just another passenger, but a woman on a mission. Amara was heading to a business summit in Los Angeles, where she planned to pitch her startup idea, a revolutionary app that streamlined air travel logistics. The concept had garnered interest from investors, and this flight was her ticket to sealing a deal that could change her life. However, her excitement was soon dimmed by a chilling encounter. As she boarded the plane, she noticed the flight attendant, a middle-aged woman with a sharp tone and a badge that read Miss Davenport, shooting her a condescending glance. Amara brushed it off, attributing it to a bad day at work. But things escalated quickly. Amara had barely settled into her seat when Miss Davenport approached her with a curt demand. "Excuse me, miss. There seems to be an issue with your ticket," she said, her voice dripping with skepticism. Amara, surprised, politely handed over her boarding pass. "I don't think there's an issue. Everything should be fine." Miss Davenport inspected the ticket and, with a dramatic huff, announced loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear, "This seat is reserved for another class of passenger." The implication hung in the air like a fog. Before Amara could respond, Miss Davenport called security. Within minutes, Amara was escorted off the plane, humiliated and fuming. She didn't just feel anger. She felt the crushing weight of being dismissed and dehumanized because of her race. The incident sparked murmurs among passengers, some outraged, others indifferent. Standing in the terminal, Amara took a deep breath. She wasn't one to crumble under pressure. "This isn't over," she whispered to herself. Little did Miss Davenport know, the young woman she had just humiliated was about to embark on a journey that would turn her life upside down and lead her to a seat of ultimate power. Amara paced the terminal, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floors. Her mind raced with thoughts of missed opportunities, the humiliation she'd just endured, and the sheer audacity of Miss Davenport's actions. She dialed her best friend, Sierra, a fiery lawyer who had always been her rock during challenging times. "Sierra, you won't believe what just happened," Amara began, her voice trembling with frustration. She recounted every detail of the incident, from the condescending glances to being escorted off the plane. Sierra's voice was calm, but laced with resolve. "This isn't just about you, Amara. It's bigger than that. We need to take action." Amara knew Sierra was right. She couldn't let this go. She pulled out her phone and started recording a video. In the clip, she described the blatant discrimination she had faced, her voice steady but impassioned. "This isn't just my story," she said into the camera. "It's the story of countless others who are dismissed, devalued, and disrespected. This ends now." She posted the video on social media, tagging the airline and popular activists. Within hours, it went viral, amassing thousands of views and comments. People from all walks of life shared their support, sharing similar experiences and demanding accountability from the airline. Meanwhile, the airline's PR team scrambled to control the damage. They issued a lukewarm apology, promising an internal review of the incident. But Amara wasn't satisfied with empty promises. She wanted real change. The next day, Amara received a call from a local journalist who had seen her video. The reporter invited her to appear on a morning news show to share her story. Amara hesitated. Public speaking wasn't her strength, but Sierra encouraged her. "This is your chance to shine, Amara. To tell the world what happened and demand change." With Sierra's help, Amara prepared for the interview. She spoke with poise and clarity, detailing not just the incident, but also the systemic issues it represented. Her words resonated with viewers, and her story became a national headline. As public outrage grew, Amara began receiving messages of support from influential figures, including civil rights activists, business leaders, and celebrities. One message, in particular, caught her attention. It was from Marcus Steele, a renowned billionaire entrepreneur known for his investments in startups led by women of color. Marcus invited Amara to a private meeting, intrigued by her resilience and vision. At first, Amara felt intimidated. What could she possibly say to someone so powerful? But Sierra reminded her of her strengths. "You're brilliant, Amara. This isn't just about what happened on that plane. It's about your potential to create real change." When Amara met Marcus in his sleek, glass-walled office overlooking Manhattan, she was struck by his commanding presence and genuine warmth. Marcus listened intently as she recounted her experience and shared her vision for her app, which she had temporarily put on hold. "I want to do more than create an app," Amara said, her voice firm. "I want to revolutionize the airline industry to create a space where everyone, regardless of their background, feels respected and valued." Marcus leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You've got the passion and the vision. Let's make it happen." He offered Amara seed funding to relaunch her app and mentorship to navigate the complexities of the airline industry. Over the next few months, Amara worked tirelessly, building a team of like-minded individuals and refining her business model. Her app, now named Skunity, wasn't just a logistical tool. It became a platform that promoted equity and inclusion in air travel, providing real-time feedback to airlines about passenger experiences and offering transparency in their practices. As Skunity gained traction, Amara's voice in the industry grew louder. She was invited to speak at conferences and panels, sharing her journey and advocating for systemic change. Airlines began to take notice, and some even partnered with her to improve their services. But Amara wasn't done yet. She had her sights set on something bigger: ownership. Amara's app, Skunity, rapidly gained momentum. Its seamless interface and bold mission of promoting accountability in air travel resonated with passengers worldwide. With each download, she felt a growing sense of validation, not just for her idea, but for the countless voices that had been silenced in similar situations. Despite her success, Amara faced resistance from established players in the airline industry. Many executives dismissed her as a disruptive outsider, while others made veiled offers to buy her out, hoping to neutralize her influence. Amara, however, refused to back down. She knew that staying independent was the key to ensuring her vision remained intact. One airline in particular seemed especially threatened: Liberty Airlines, the same company whose flight attendant had humiliated her months ago. The company's CEO, Charles Whitman, a stern, silver-haired businessman known for his no-nonsense approach, publicly criticized Skunity during an industry conference. "These so-called disruptors don't understand the complexities of running an airline," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "Passengers may appreciate flashy apps, but at the end of the day, they trust established brands like ours to deliver safe and reliable service." Amara, watching the conference online, clenched her fists. Whitman's comments were clearly directed at her, and she felt the sting of being underestimated. But instead of reacting emotionally, she decided to double down on her efforts. She expanded Skunity's offerings, introducing features that directly addressed customer complaints, everything from tracking lost luggage to real-time updates on delays. More importantly, she launched a partnership program that rewarded airlines for adopting equitable policies, such as diverse hiring practices and anti-bias training for staff. Amara's bold moves caught the attention of more investors, and her company's valuation skyrocketed. But with growth came new challenges. The pressure of leading a fast-growing startup, coupled with the constant media scrutiny, began to take a toll on her mental health. One evening, as she worked late in her small but bustling office, Sierra stopped by with takeout. "Amara, you need to take a break," Sierra said, placing a hand on her friend's shoulder. "I can't, Sierra. There's too much to do. Whitman is already trying to discredit me. If I let up now, I'll lose momentum." Sierra sat across from her, a look of concern on her face. "You've been running on adrenaline for months. If you burn out, everything you've built will suffer. You need to take care of yourself too." Amara sighed, realizing Sierra was right. She agreed to take a weekend off to recharge, retreating to a quiet cabin in the woods where she could reflect on her journey. It was during this time of solitude that she had a breakthrough idea. Instead of just working alongside airlines, why not create her own? The idea seemed audacious, almost impossible. Starting an airline from scratch would require immense resources, and the industry was notoriously difficult to break into. But Amara couldn't shake the thought. She called Marcus Steele to share her vision. Marcus listened carefully before replying. "It's a bold move, but I think you're ready. Let's explore the possibilities." Over the next several months, Amara and Marcus assembled a team of experts in aviation, finance, and marketing to lay the groundwork for her new airline, which she named Elevate Air. The company's mission was clear: to redefine air travel with a focus on inclusivity, transparency, and top-notch customer service. The announcement of Elevate Air sent shockwaves through the industry. Critics were quick to label it a pipe dream, but Amara's supporters rallied behind her. Pre-launch surveys revealed a strong demand for her vision, especially among younger travelers who valued ethics and innovation. As Elevate Air prepared for its inaugural flight, Liberty Airlines intensified its efforts to undermine Amara. They launched a smear campaign, accusing her of being inexperienced and unqualified to run an airline. Whitman even went so far as to call her a publicity stunt during a televised interview. Amara, however, refused to engage in mudslinging. Instead, she focused on her work, ensuring that Elevate Air's launch would be flawless. On the day of the inaugural flight, the atmosphere at the airport was electric. Passengers boarded the sleek, newly designed aircraft with its signature teal and gold logo, representing unity and empowerment. Amara greeted them personally, her heart swelling with pride as she saw her dream come to life. The flight was a resounding success, and media coverage was overwhelmingly positive. Passengers praised the airline's attentive service, spacious seating, and diverse crew, stark contrast to their experiences with legacy carriers like Liberty Airlines. Whitman, watching the coverage from his office, realized too late that he had underestimated Amara. She wasn't just a disruptor, she was a force to be reckoned with. The success of Elevate Air's inaugural flight marked a turning point in Amara's journey. Media outlets hailed her as a trailblazer, and passengers flocked to book tickets with the new airline. But amid the accolades, a storm was brewing behind the scenes. A week after the launch, Amara received a confidential email from an anonymous sender. The message contained leaked documents that exposed troubling practices at Liberty Airlines. These included falsified safety inspections, mistreatment of employees, and discriminatory policies aimed at maintaining a homogeneous corporate culture. The sender's note was brief: "They're coming for you. Use this wisely." Amara's heart raced as she scanned the documents. If the information was legitimate, it could bring Liberty Airlines to its knees. But using it carried significant risks. She knew that a public confrontation could lead to a legal battle that would strain her resources and distract her from growing Elevate Air. She called a meeting with her inner circle, including Sierra, Marcus, and her head of public relations, Lauren. The group debated the best course of action. "This is a bombshell," Sierra said, her lawyerly instincts kicking in. "But we need to verify it before making a move. If Liberty finds out we have this, they'll come after us with everything they've got." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Exposing them could work in our favor, but it might also make us look petty, like we're punching down. We need to think strategically," Lauren added. "What if we use this as leverage instead of going public? We could force them to change their practices, or at least neutralize their attacks on us." Amara listened carefully, weighing each perspective. Finally, she spoke. "We'll verify the documents first. If they're real, we'll use them to push for systemic change, not revenge. This isn't just about Elevate Air. It's about creating a better industry." The team worked around the clock to authenticate the documents. Their investigation uncovered a tangled web of corruption that extended far beyond Liberty Airlines. Several regulatory officials appeared complicit, turning a blind eye to the company's violations in exchange for bribes and favors. As the pieces fell into place, Amara realized the enormity of the challenge ahead. This wasn't just a battle against liberty, it was a fight against an entire system that perpetuated inequality and exploitation. To prepare for the inevitable backlash, Amara enlisted the help of high-profile allies, including civil rights leaders and consumer advocacy groups. Together, they devised a plan to release the information strategically, ensuring maximum impact. The tipping point came when Liberty Airlines launched another smear campaign against Elevate Air, accusing them of safety violations claims that were blatantly false. Amara saw this as her moment to strike. In a live press conference, Amara addressed the accusations head-on. She spoke with calm authority, dismantling Liberty's claims with facts and evidence. Then, in a dramatic turn, she revealed the leaked documents, carefully redacted to protect the whistleblower's identity. These aren't just accusations, Amara said, holding up the papers. They're proof of a broken system. This is what happens when power goes unchecked. But I believe we can do better. Elevate Air is committed to transparency, fairness, and accountability values that should be the standard, not the exception. The press conference sent shockwaves through the industry. Liberty Airlines scrambled to issue a statement, but their attempts to deflect only made them look more guilty. Within days, regulators launched an investigation into the company, and several executives, including Whitman, were forced to resign. But the fallout didn't stop there. The revelations prompted widespread calls for reform, leading to new legislation aimed at increasing oversight in the airline industry. Amara's courage had sparked a movement, and she became a symbol of resilience and integrity. Despite her victory, the fight took a toll on Amara. She faced constant scrutiny and the stress of balancing her growing airline with her newfound role as an activist began to wear on her. One evening, she confided in Marcus during a rare moment of downtime. "I didn't sign up to be a symbol," she admitted, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "I just wanted to fix something that was broken." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes the path chooses us. But remember, you're not alone in this. You've built something incredible, and you've inspired people to join you. That's what leadership is about." His words gave Amara a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that while the fight was far from over, she had the tools, the allies, and the determination to see it through. The revelations against Liberty Airlines caused seismic ripples across the industry. Airlines scrambled to review their own practices, fearing similar exposés. Regulators, now under the public eye, promised sweeping reforms. Meanwhile, Amara Johnson became a household name, her face appearing on magazine covers and television programs as the woman who took on a corporate giant and won. But success came with its challenges. While Elevate Air saw a surge in bookings, the backlash from Liberty Airlines loyalists and industry insiders was swift and harsh. Amara's inbox filled with hate mail, and smear campaigns questioning her integrity began circulating online. "It's unbelievable," Sierra said, slamming her laptop shut during a meeting at Elevate Air's headquarters. "They're spinning this to make you look like the villain, calling you unqualified, a publicity seeker. It's disgusting." Amara, seated at the head of the conference table, sighed deeply. "I knew this wouldn't be easy, but we can't afford to get distracted. Every minute we spend responding to their noise is a minute we're not improving our airline." Lauren, the head of PR, nodded. "We need to control the narrative. Let's focus on what makes Elevate Air different. Highlight our values, our customer stories, and our impact. Let them see the good we're doing." The team threw themselves into the campaign, producing videos that showcased the inclusivity and innovation of Elevate Air. Passengers shared testimonials about their experiences, how they felt seen and respected in ways they hadn't with other airlines. Amara herself became the face of the brand, appearing in interviews and public events where she emphasized her mission to transform the industry. Despite the positive momentum, Amara couldn't ignore the personal toll the battle was taking on her. She felt isolated, constantly surrounded by people, but rarely able to let her guard down. Her phone buzzed incessantly with calls, messages, and meeting requests, leaving little time for self-care or connection with her loved ones. One evening, Sierra invited her to dinner, insisting that she needed a break. Over a plate of spicy jambalaya, a dish that reminded them of their childhood in Louisiana, Sierra spoke candidly. Amara, you've done something amazing, but you can't carry this alone forever. Delegation isn't just a business strategy. It's survival. Amara poked at her food, her appetite waning. I know you're right, but I feel like if I let go of anything, I'll lose control. There's so much at stake. Sierra leaned in, her tone gentle but firm. Control doesn't mean doing everything yourself. It means trusting the team you've built. You've got some brilliant people around you, Amara. Let them do what they do best. The conversation lingered in Amara's mind over the next few days. She began delegating more responsibilities to her executive team, freeing herself to focus on the bigger picture. She also started setting boundaries, carving out time for herself to recharge and reflect. Meanwhile, the fallout from Liberty Airlines scandal deepened. The company's stock plummeted, and rumors of a potential bankruptcy began circulating. Whitman, now disgraced and under investigation, was replaced by an interim CEO who reached out to Amara with a surprising proposal. During a private meeting in a sleek conference room, the new CEO, Regina Cole, laid her cards on the table. Miss Johnson, Liberty Airlines is in freefall. We need a complete overhaul, and frankly, you've proven that you understand what passengers want. I'm here to propose a merger, a partnership that could benefit us both. Amara stared at her, stunned. You want to merge with Elevate Air? After everything your company has done to undermine us? Regina met her gaze without flinching. I understand your hesitation, but the reality is, Liberty Airlines is too big to fail. If we go under, it could destabilize the entire industry. Together, we could create something truly transformative, a leader in air travel that reflects your values and our reach. The offer was tempting, but Amara couldn't ignore the risks. A merger would mean inheriting Liberty's tarnished reputation and internal dysfunctions. It could also alienate her loyal supporters, who saw Elevate Air as a symbol of resistance against the establishment. She called a meeting with her advisors to discuss the proposal. Marcus was cautious. Regina's offer could be a game changer, but only if you maintain control. If they're looking to co-opt you, it'll be a disaster. Sierra was more skeptical. This could be a trap. Liberty needs you more than you need them. Why not let them sink and expand Elevate Air on your own terms? Amara sat quietly, absorbing their perspectives. She knew the decision would shape the future of her company and her legacy. After days of deliberation, Amara made her choice. In a press conference broadcast globally, she announced that Elevate Air would not be merging with Liberty Airlines. While we recognize the need for systemic change, we believe that real transformation comes from building something new, not patching up the old. Elevate Air will continue to grow independently, guided by our values and the trust of our passengers. The announcement was met with widespread applause from her supporters, but it also intensified the scrutiny on Liberty Airlines, which struggled to recover from its losses. Privately, Amara felt a mix of relief and apprehension. She had made the bold choice to stay true to her vision, but she knew the fight wasn't over. With her decision to reject Liberty Airlines' merger offer, Amara solidified Elevate Air's reputation as a principled disruptor in the aviation industry. However, the choice came with steep consequences. Liberty Airlines' collapse sent shockwaves through the market, leading to rising fares, reduced routes, and growing frustration among passengers who now had fewer options. Amara faced mounting criticism from media pundits who accused her of prioritizing ideology over practicality. Her decision to let Liberty Airlines fail has left passengers stranded and increased costs for the average traveler. One commentator argued on a primetime news segment, "Is this the kind of leadership we want from the so-called future of aviation?" The criticism stung, but Amara refused to backtrack. She issued a statement reaffirming her commitment to transforming air travel through innovation and integrity. Still, she couldn't ignore the ripple effects of Liberty's downfall. Many former employees of the airline, pilots, flight attendants, and ground crew, were left jobless and struggling. Amara saw an opportunity to turn this crisis into a chance for growth. She announced a new initiative to hire displaced Liberty employees, offering them retraining programs and positions within Elevate Air. The move was both a strategic expansion and a statement of her commitment to the people affected by the industry's failings. The initiative was a logistical challenge. Many of the former Liberty employees carried deep resentment toward their previous employer and were skeptical of Elevate Air's promises. Amara personally attended recruitment events, listening to their concerns and sharing her vision. One such event, held in Atlanta, was particularly emotional. A former Liberty pilot named Captain Rodney McAllister confronted her during a Q&A session. "Miss Johnson, with all due respect, how do we know this isn't just another corporate gimmick? I've seen airlines promise the world and deliver nothing but layoffs and broken dreams." Amara looked him in the eye, her voice steady. "Captain McAllister, I can't erase the damage Liberty Airlines caused, but I can promise you this. Elevate Air isn't just an airline, it's a movement. We're building something new, and we need people like you to help us get it right. This is about more than business. It's about restoring dignity to an industry that's lost its way." Her sincerity resonated with many in the room, and by the end of the event, dozens of former Liberty employees signed on to join Elevate Air. The influx of experienced staff strengthened the airline's operations and helped expand its routes, bringing affordable and equitable air travel to underserved communities. But as Elevate Air grew, so did the challenges. Rival airlines, threatened by Amara's success, began forming alliances to protect their market share. They lobbied aggressively against her, pushing for regulations that would make it harder for new entrants like Elevate Air to compete. One particular rival, Skyfront Airways, emerged as a formidable adversary. Led by CEO Malcolm Drake, a shrewd businessman with a reputation for ruthless tactics, Skyfront launched a coordinated attack against Elevate Air. Their strategy included undercutting fares on overlapping routes, spreading false rumors about Elevate Air's safety standards, and pressuring suppliers to sever ties with Amara's airline. The pressure mounted when Elevate Air's largest fuel supplier abruptly terminated its contract, citing logistical challenges. Amara suspected Skyfront's involvement, but lacked concrete proof. The loss threatened to disrupt Elevate Air's operations, and the team scrambled to find an alternative supplier. During this turbulent time, Amara found herself reconnecting with an old mentor, Dr. Evelyn Ross, a retired business professor who had guided her during her college years. Over tea at Dr. Ross's cozy home, Amara poured out her frustrations. "I knew this journey wouldn't be easy, but I didn't expect it to feel like a war," she admitted. "Every time we take a step forward, someone's there to knock us back." Dr. Ross smiled knowingly. "Amara, change is never easy, especially when it threatens entrenched power. But remember, resilience isn't just about surviving challenges, it's about thriving despite them. Use their resistance as fuel to keep pushing forward." Inspired by her mentor's wisdom, Amara doubled down on her efforts to outmaneuver Skyfront. She forged partnerships with sustainable energy companies, securing a new fuel supply that not only stabilized operations, but also aligned with Elevate Air's commitment to eco-conscious practices. Meanwhile, Sierra worked behind the scenes to investigate Skyfront's tactic. Her team uncovered evidence of collusion between Skyfront and several suppliers, as well as emails suggesting that Malcolm Drake had orchestrated the smear campaign against Elevate Air. Armed with this information, Amara filed a formal complaint with federal regulators, triggering an investigation into Skyfront's practices. The conflict with Skyfront wasn't just a test of Amara's business acumen. It also tested her resilience and integrity. She refused to stoop to the same underhanded tactics as her rivals, choosing instead to let her work speak for itself. As the investigation into Skyfront gained traction, public sentiment began shifting in Amara's favor. Passengers rallied behind her, sharing stories of how Elevate Air had improved their travel experiences and calling for accountability from the industry's giants. Despite the mounting challenges, Amara remained steadfast. She knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but she also knew that she was fighting for something far greater than herself. Amara's battle against Skyfront Airways intensified, turning into a high-stakes chess game. Each move Elevate Air made to innovate or expand was met with calculated counterattacks. Yet, the deeper Amara delved into the industry's shadowy dealings, the clearer it became that this was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight for systemic change. Despite the external challenges, internal tensions within Elevate Air began to surface. The rapid growth and relentless pressure were taking a toll on Amara's team. Long hours, high expectations, and constant scrutiny had frayed nerves, leading to heated arguments during strategy meetings. One evening, during a particularly tense session, Lauren, the head of PR, finally voiced what many others were feeling. "Amara, I respect you more than anyone," she said, her voice trembling. "But the pace we're keeping isn't sustainable. People are burning out, and the pressure to be perfect all the time, it's crushing." Amara looked around the room and saw exhaustion etched on her team's faces. She realized that in her drive to push Elevate Air forward, she had overlooked the toll it was taking on the people who believed in her vision. "You're right," she admitted, her voice heavy with regret. "I've been so focused on the fight that I've forgotten to take care of the people fighting with me. We'll make changes starting now. Let's figure out how we can support each other better." The acknowledgement was a turning point for the team. They instituted wellness programs, reorganized workloads, and began fostering a culture that prioritized balance alongside ambition. Amara herself took steps to delegate more effectively, trusting her team to share the burden. At the same time, Amara faced an unexpected personal dilemma. Malcolm Drake, CEO of Skyfront Airways, reached out through a mutual contact, proposing a private meeting to discuss a potential ceasefire. The suggestion surprised her, given his reputation for ruthlessness. The meeting was arranged at a neutral location, a sleek hotel conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's skyline. Malcolm, a sharp-dressed man in his late 40s with an air of calculated charm, greeted her warmly. "Amara," he began, gesturing for her to sit. "You've made quite the name for yourself. I admire your tenacity, even if it's made my life considerably more complicated." Amara's guard was up, but she remained composed. "I assume you didn't call me here to exchange compliments. What do you want, Malcolm?" He smiled, leaning back in his chair. "A truce. This fight isn't good for either of us. I propose a strategic alliance. You focus on your niche innovative, eco-conscious travel, and I'll handle the mass-market routes. We can coexist without stepping on each other's toes." Amara's instincts told her there was more to his offer than met the eye. "And what do you get out of this?" "Peace of mind," he replied smoothly, "and perhaps a chance to repair my reputation. Let's face it, you've got the public on your side. Partnering with you could be mutually beneficial." Amara didn't trust him, but the offer was tempting. A partnership could ease the pressure on Elevate Air, giving her the breathing room to focus on long-term goals. Yet, aligning with Malcolm might also tarnish her reputation and compromise her values. After the meeting, Amara sought advice from Marcus, Sierra, and her team. Marcus was pragmatic. "It's a risky move, but there's merit in keeping your enemies close. If you can dictate the terms, you might come out ahead." Sierra was more cautious. "Malcolm's playing an angle you just don't know what it is yet. Aligning with him could undermine everything you've worked for." Amara wrestled with the decision, torn between the potential benefits and the nagging feeling that Malcolm's proposal was a trap. Meanwhile, Skyfront's aggressive tactics continued, making the pressure to accept his offer even greater. In the midst of this turmoil, Amara found solace in an unexpected place. Rodney McAllister, the former Liberty Airlines pilot she had hired, became a trusted confidant. His straightforward demeanor and years of industry experience offered a grounding perspective that Amara desperately needed. During a quiet moment after a flight inspection, Rodney pulled her aside. "You're facing the kind of choices that define leaders," he said. "Whatever you decide, make sure it aligns with who you are. People follow you because they believe in your vision, Amara. Don't lose that for the sake of an easier road." His words struck a chord. Amara realized that no matter how tempting Malcolm's offer might seem, it didn't align with her values. In a carefully worded statement, Amara publicly rejected Skyfront's proposal, framing it as a commitment to her mission of integrity and transparency. At Elevate Air, We believe in competing through innovation and service, not compromise. We will continue to challenge the status quo and build an industry that serves everyone. The decision was risky, but it reinforced her position as a leader who refused to waver in the face of adversity. Public support surged, and Elevate Air's employees rallied behind her with renewed determination. Yet, Malcolm's next move remained a mystery, and Amara knew the battle was far from over. Amara's bold rejection of Malcolm Drake's proposal sent shockwaves through the industry. Her public statement solidified her reputation as a leader of principle, but it also provoked a fierce reaction from Skyfront Airways. Behind the scenes, Malcolm intensified his efforts to undermine Elevate Air. Unbeknownst to Amara, Skyfront had infiltrated her operations. A former Liberty Airlines executive now working for Elevate Air was secretly feeding information to Malcolm. The betrayal came to light when Sierra, always meticulous, noticed inconsistencies in internal reports. "Amara, look at this," Sierra said during a late-night meeting. She pointed to discrepancies in the airline's procurement records. "It's subtle, but someone's manipulating our data, and I think it's coming from inside." Amara's stomach dropped. "Are you saying we have a mole?" Sierra nodded grimly. "I can't prove it yet, but the patterns are too deliberate to be accidental." The revelation threw Amara into uncharted territory. Trust was a cornerstone of her leadership style, and the idea that someone on her team was working against her was deeply unsettling. She tasked Sierra with investigating discreetly, knowing that any misstep could cause panic or tip off the saboteur. As Sierra delved into the records, more troubling signs emerged. Financial anomalies pointed to contracts being rerouted to suppliers with ties to Skyfront. Maintenance schedules were inexplicably altered, causing minor delays that tarnished Elevate Air's reputation for reliability. The sabotage was subtle enough to avoid immediate detection, but damaging enough to erode confidence. Meanwhile, Amara faced growing pressure from regulators who had been influenced by Skyfront's lobbying efforts. New compliance requirements were introduced, disproportionately affecting smaller carriers like Elevate Air. Amara suspected Skyfront's hand in the sudden changes, but without concrete evidence, she was forced to adapt quickly to avoid penalties. Tensions reached a boiling point when an Elevate Air flight experienced an unexpected mechanical issue, forcing an emergency landing. Although no one was hurt, the incident made headlines, fueling Skyfront's narrative that Elevate Air was unsafe. Amara was furious. She convened an emergency meeting with her executive team, demanding answers. "We need to find out what's going on and fast. This isn't just bad luck, it's sabotage." Rodney McAllister, now a senior advisor, chimed in. "If Skyfront's behind this, they're playing a dangerous game. But you need proof before you make any accusations." Sierra interrupted with an update. "I've narrowed it down to a handful of suspects. One name keeps coming up, Patricia Vega, a recent hire from Liberty Airlines. She's had access to all the compromised systems." Amara's heart sank. Patricia had been part of the group hired during Elevate Air's expansion, a decision made in good faith to support displaced workers. Confronting her would be delicate. If Patricia was innocent, it could shatter trust within the team. The confrontation was tense. Amara and Sierra brought Patricia into a private meeting, presenting her with the evidence. At first, Patricia denied any wrongdoing, her voice trembling with indignation. But as Sierra pressed her with more details, her fog cracked. "Fine," Patricia snapped, her tone defiant. "Yes, I've been feeding information to Skyfront. But do you have any idea what it's like to watch your former colleagues lose everything while you sit here pretending to fix the system? Skyfront offered me a chance to help them get back on their feet." Amara's voice was steady, but laced with disappointment. "And you thought sabotaging Elevate Air would accomplish that? All you've done is put more people at risk, our passengers, our employees, and yourself." Patricia's expression faltered, guilt replacing defiance. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I thought I was doing the right thing." Amara dismissed her from the team immediately and reported her actions to the authorities. Patricia's confession provided the evidence needed to implicate Skyfront in the sabotage, triggering a new wave of investigations. As the story broke, public opinion swung back in Elevate Air's favor. News outlets praised Amara for her transparency and resilience, and passenger loyalty surged. But the victory was bittersweet. The betrayal had left scars, and Amara knew she couldn't afford to let her guard down again. In the midst of the chaos, another unexpected twist emerged. During the investigation, Sierra uncovered encrypted communications between Skyfront and an unnamed third party. The messages hinted at a larger conspiracy involving regulatory officials and industry leaders, suggesting that Skyfront wasn't acting alone. "This goes deeper than we thought," Sierra said, her voice grave. "Skyfront's just one piece of the puzzle. Someone else is pulling the strings." The discovery added a new layer of intrigue to the conflict. Amara realized that defeating Skyfront wasn't enough. She needed to expose the entire network of corruption that had plagued the industry for years. With renewed determination, she expanded her team, bringing in cybersecurity experts and investigative journalists to dig deeper. Elevate Air's mission was no longer just about transforming air travel. It was about dismantling a system that thrived on exploitation and secrecy. Amara stood at the edge of a new frontier, knowing that the stakes had never been higher. The fight ahead would be her toughest yet, but she was ready to face it head-on. The discovery of encrypted communications hinted at a vast network of corruption within the aviation industry. As Elevate Air began peeling back the layers, the scope of the conspiracy became clear. Regulatory officials, major airline executives, and powerful lobbyists had formed an alliance to suppress competition and maintain control over the market. Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose. Exposing this network wasn't just about vindicating Elevate Air, it was about creating a fairer system for everyone. But taking on such entrenched power required more than ambition. It required allies. Amara's first call was to Marcus Steele, her mentor and one of Elevate Air's earliest supporters. "This is bigger than anything I imagined," she admitted during a late-night video call. "If we're going to fight this, I need resources, legal, financial, and investigative." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "You've already done the impossible, Amara. You've built a company that stands for something in an industry that doesn't. I'll help you take this fight to the next level. Let me make some calls." True to his word, Marcus connected Amara with influential figures in the business and legal worlds. Among them was Elena Castillo, a high-powered attorney with a track record of taking down corporate monopolies. Elena's fiery determination matched Amara's, and she quickly became a key player in the fight. Amara also reached out to civil rights organizations and consumer advocacy groups, framing the battle as a struggle for equity and accountability. Her approach resonated with grassroots movements, and soon, a coalition formed to demand transparency and reform in the aviation industry. As the coalition grew, so did the connections between the individuals who believed in Amara's vision. Rodney McAllister, the seasoned pilot who had become a trusted advisor, emerged as a key spokesperson for the cause. His years of experience lent credibility to Elevate Air's claims, and his no-nonsense approach made him a favorite among skeptical audiences. "People trust you, Rodney," Amara told him after a press conference. "You've been in the trenches. Your voice carries weight." Rodney smiled wryly. "Well, if you're going to drag me into the spotlight, at least let me pick my own tie next time." Amara laughed, a rare moment of levity in an otherwise intense period. Their bond had deepened over months of working together, and she valued his steady presence as a counterbalance to her own relentless drive. Sierra, meanwhile, took on an increasingly personal stake in the fight. Her investigative work uncovered not only professional misconduct, but also troubling racial and gender disparities in the industry's hiring and promotion practices. "It's not just about the planes, Amara," Sierra said one evening as they pored over documents. "This system is designed to keep people like us out from the boardroom to the cockpit." Amara nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then we'll break the system and build something better." The encrypted messages Sierra had found led to a breakthrough. A team of cybersecurity experts traced the communications to a shadowy consulting firm, Argus Strategies, known for its ties to powerful corporate interests. Argus had been coordinating efforts to sabotage Elevate Air, using Skyfront as a pawn while shielding its true clients from scrutiny. Sierra and Elena began digging into Argus's operations, uncovering a trove of documents that revealed its role in lobbying for anti-competitive policies, orchestrating smear campaigns, and even bribing regulators to target smaller airlines. "This is our smoking gun," Elena said, her voice electric with excitement as she reviewed the evidence. "If we can prove Argus is pulling the strings, we can dismantle the entire network." But going public with the information came with risks. Argus had powerful allies who wouldn't hesitate to retaliate. Amara's legal team advised caution, but Amara knew they couldn't afford to wait too long. "Every day we delay, they're finding ways to cover their tracks," she said during a strategy meeting. "We need to stay ahead of them." Amid the escalating tension, Amara received an unexpected visit from Regina Cole, the interim CEO of Liberty Airline. Since the company's downfall, Regina had been working to rebuild its reputation, and she approached Amara with a surprising offer. "I know we've been on opposite sides of this fight," Regina said, her tone measured. "But I've seen what you're up against, and I believe in what you're trying to do. If you'll let me, I'd like to help." Amara was skeptical. "Why now, Regina? What changed?" Regina hesitated, then admitted, "When Liberty collapsed, I saw firsthand how broken this industry is. It wasn't just bad management, it was the whole system. You've shown there's a different way. I want to be part of that." After much deliberation, Amara agreed to let Regina join the coalition, assigning her to lead a task force focused on policy reform. The move was controversial, but it signaled Amara's willingness to unite even with former adversaries for the greater good. As Elevate Air and its allies prepared to go public with their findings, the stakes grew higher. Argus Strategies launched a counterattack, hiring private investigators to dig into Amara's past and plant rumors about her personal life. Amara's team worked tirelessly to counter the smear campaigns, but the attacks took a toll. At times, Amara wondered if she had underestimated the cost of challenging such a powerful system. One evening, as she stood on the tarmac watching an Elevate airplane take off, Rodney joined her. "You're carrying a lot, Amara," he said quietly. "But don't forget why you started this. You've already changed so much." She smiled faintly. "Sometimes I wonder if it's enough." "It is," Rodney said firmly. "And you're not done yet." Amara stood at the heart of a storm that had engulfed the aviation industry. With Argus Strategies identified as the puppet master behind the corruption, Elevate Air's fight for survival became a broader battle for justice. The coalition of allies Amara had assembled was strong, but the enemies they faced were relentless, well-funded, and willing to stop at nothing to maintain their grip on power. The tension came to a head when Argus, through its network of influencers, successfully pushed a federal inquiry into Elevate Air's operations. The inquiry claimed to be about ensuring safety and compliance, but Amara knew it was a ploy to distract and discredit her. The announcement sent shockwaves through the media, with headlines questioning whether Elevate Air was growing too fast or cutting corners. At a hastily organized meeting, Amara's inner circle debated their next move. "This is a direct attack," Sierra said, slamming a stack of papers onto the table. "They're trying to drown us in legal fees and public scrutiny, so we can't focus on exposing them." Elena Castillo, their powerhouse attorney, leaned back in her chair, her expression calm but focused. "We can handle the inquiry, but it's going to take time and resources. Meanwhile, we need to stay on offense. The evidence against Argus is solid, and if we don't act soon, they'll bury it." Amara nodded, her jaw tight. "Then we'll fight on both fronts. Elena, I'll leave the inquiry in your hands. Sierra, I want you to prepare the evidence against Argus for release. We're not waiting for the perfect moment, we're making one." As the team worked around the clock, Argus escalated its attacks. Anonymous threats began flooding Amara's inbox, and mysterious figures were spotted near Elevate Air's headquarters. Sierra became increasingly paranoid, insisting on heightened security measures for the team. One evening, as Amara drove home, she noticed a black SUV following her. Her heart raced as she took a series of sharp turns, finally losing the vehicle in a crowded parking garage. The incident shook her, but also reinforced her resolve. "They're desperate," Marcus told her when she recounted the event. "Desperation means they know you're close to something they can't stop, but the threats weren't just physical." Argus also launched a smear campaign, leaking doctored financial records to suggest that Elevate Air was involved in unethical practices. The allegations were baseless, but the media frenzy they created forced Amara to divert attention from the larger fight. Rodney McAllister stepped in to help manage the fallout, appearing on morning shows and in interviews to defend Elevate Air's integrity. His calm, authoritative demeanor won over skeptics, and his loyalty to Amara inspired the rest of the team to stay focused. Despite their unity, cracks began to form within the coalition. Some allies, fearing backlash or financial losses, started distancing themselves. Regina Cole, the former Liberty Airlines CEO, faced intense scrutiny for her involvement with the coalition and began wavering in her commitment. During a tense phone call, Regina admitted her concerns to Amara. "I believe in what you're doing, but the pressure is too much. My board is threatening to oust me if I don't pull back." Amara's voice was firm, but empathetic. "I understand your position, Regina, but this fight is about more than any one of us. If you walk away now, you'll be letting them win." Regina hesitated, but ultimately agreed to stay on, though her involvement became less visible. The incident reminded Amara that even the strongest alliances could be fragile under pressure. Just as the tension reached a boiling point, Sierra uncovered a bombshell: internal emails from Argus Strategies detailing their entire plan to undermine Elevate Air. The messages revealed not only the extent of their influence, but also named key collaborators in regulatory agencies and rival airlines. The discovery was the smoking gun they needed. Amara's coalition quickly mobilized to verify the information and prepare it for public release. But before they could act, a hacker group unaffiliated with the coalition leaked the documents online. The leak went viral within hours, sparking outrage across social media and news outlets. Headlines screamed of corporate collusion, bribery, and systemic corruption, with Argus Strategies at the center of the scandal. The public backlash was swift and severe, forcing several high-ranking officials and executives to resign. While the leak vindicated Amara's fight, it also complicated the coalition's plans. By releasing the information prematurely, the hacker group had given Argus's allies a chance to regroup and spin the narrative. "We've lost control of the story," Elena warned during an emergency meeting. "They're already claiming the leak was fabricated and painting themselves as victims." Amara clenched her fists, frustration coursing through her. "Then we'll have to prove it's real. The evidence is out there. We just need to connect the dots and make it impossible for them to deny." As the fight reached its peak, Amara found herself increasingly isolated. Her relentless schedule left little time for friends or family, and even her closest allies began urging her to step back. One evening, Rodney confronted her in her office. "Amara, you're running yourself into the ground. You can't save the industry if you don't take care of yourself." She looked up from her desk, exhaustion evident in her eyes. "I can't stop now, Rodney. Not when we're this close." Rodney's voice softened. "I get it, but you're no good to anyone if you burn out. Let the team shoulder some of the weight. You don't have to do this alone." His words stayed with her as she pushed through the final stages of the fight. Amara knew the stakes were higher than ever, but she also realized the importance of leaning on the people who believed in her. The public outrage against Argus continued to build, creating a groundswell of support for Elevate Air's mission. Regulators were forced to launch formal investigations, and the coalition began preparing for a series of public hearings that would determine the future of the industry. Amara stood on the precipice of victory, but she also knew the final battle would demand everything she had left. The public hearings that would determine the future of the aviation industry loomed large. Amara Johnson found herself at the center of a media frenzy, hailed as a hero by supporters and vilified by detractors. The hearings were set to take place in Washington, D.C., with the coalition's evidence against Argus Strategies and its allies as the focal point. It was the moment everything had been building toward: a showdown between transparency and entrenched corruption. As Amara prepared to testify, Malcolm Drake of Skyfront Airways launched a final, desperate attack. Skyfront's legal team filed a lawsuit against Elevate Air, alleging defamation and unfair competition. The suit was a blatant attempt to distract Amara and her coalition, but its timing couldn't have been worse. This is a classic delay tactic, Elena Castillo fumed as she reviewed the lawsuit. They know it won't hold up in court, but it's designed to rattle us and make you look guilty. Amara clenched her jaw. We're not taking the bait. Let them throw whatever they have at us. I'm testifying as planned. Elena nodded, impressed by Amara's resolve. I'll handle the lawsuit. You focus on the hearings. This is your moment to set the record straight. Despite her determination, Amara couldn't ignore the growing pressure. The smear campaigns intensified, and her team received anonymous threats warning them to drop the case. Sierra became increasingly protective, insisting on additional security measures for the entire coalition. They're scared, Sierra said during a late-night strategy session. And they should be. We're about to expose everything they've tried to hide. Amara nodded, but a part of her couldn't shake the weight of the responsibility she carried. The fight wasn't just about Elevate Air anymore, it was about accountability for an entire industry. The day of the hearing arrived, and the atmosphere in the packed congressional chamber was electric. Cameras flashed as Amara entered, flanked by her legal team and coalition members. Opposite her sat representatives from Argus Strategies, Skyfront Airways, and other implicated parties, their expressions a mix of arrogance and unease. As the session began, Amara took the stand. She spoke with conviction, detailing the evidence her team had uncovered and painting a vivid picture of the corruption that had plagued the industry for decades. This isn't just about one company or one scandal, she said, her voice steady but impassioned. It's about a system that prioritizes profits over people, a system that has silenced dissent, suppressed innovation, and exploited consumers for far too long. Elevate Air was built to challenge that system, and today we're asking for your help to ensure fairness and accountability for everyone. Her testimony was met with murmurs of approval from the audience, but the opposing side wasn't finished. Argus's lead attorney, a sharp-tongued man named Victor Harlan, began his cross-examination with thinly veiled hostility. Miss Johnson, he began, you claim to stand for integrity, yet your company has faced accusations of safety violations and financial mismanagement. How can we trust your version of events? Amara met his gaze calmly. Those accusations were baseless and designed to distract from the real issues. Elevate Air has always operated with transparency, and our record speaks for itself, Victor smirked. Convenient. But isn't it true that your rise to prominence coincided with the collapse of Liberty Airlines, an event that displaced thousands of workers? Amara's expression hardened. What happened to Liberty Airlines was the result of its own mismanagement and unethical practices we've worked to expose and correct. Elevate Air didn't cause their collapse. We offered a new path forward. Her responses were measured, but the grilling left her emotionally drained. When the session adjourned for the day, she retreated to a quiet corner of the building with Sierra and Rodney. They're coming at you hard, Rodney said, his tone both concerned and admiring. But you're holding your ground. Amara nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. I just hope it's enough. The next day, the coalition unveiled its most damning evidence, a recorded video call between senior Argus executives and Malcolm Drake, in which they openly discussed their plans to sabotage Elevate Air and manipulate regulators. The chamber erupted in gasps as the footage played. Even some of the most skeptical lawmakers seemed visibly shaken. Amara watched as Malcolm's face turned pale, his composure cracking for the first time. When it was his turn to testify, Malcolm attempted to downplay the recording, calling it misrepresented and out of context, but his protests rang hollow, and the tide of public opinion continued to shift in Amara's favor. Outside the hearing, protesters gathered in support of Elevate Air and the coalition. Their signs bore slogans like "Transparency Now" and "Elevate Accountability." The groundswell of grassroots support energized Amara and her team, reminding them of the broader impact of their fight. As the hearings drew to a close, the committee announced that they would issue a ruling within weeks. In the meantime, they ordered an immediate investigation into Argus Strategies and Skyfront Airways, effectively halting their operations. Amara felt a wave of relief, but also a deep sense of anticipation. The fight wasn't over, but the momentum was on their side. As she left the chamber, reporters swarmed her, shouting questions. She paused briefly, her voice resolute as she addressed them. Today was a victory for truth, but the work is far from done. This isn't just about Elevate Air, it's about creating a better, fairer system for everyone. And we won't stop until we achieve that. The crowd erupted in applause, and Amara allowed herself a small, determined smile. The weeks following the hearing were a whirlwind of anticipation and anxiety. Elevate Air's victory in exposing Argus Strategies was monumental, but the coalition knew the real fight was far from over. The federal inquiry into Argus and its collaborators intensified, with subpoenas issued to high-ranking officials, airline executives, and lobbyists. For Amara, the stakes had never been higher. The committee's decision would determine whether the aviation industry would face long overdue reforms or continue its cycle of corruption. Meanwhile, Elevate Air faced mounting financial pressures as Skyfront's smear campaigns and the federal inquiry drained resources. At headquarters, Amara gathered her team for an all-hands meeting. "I know it feels like we're under siege," she said, her voice steady despite the weight she carried. "But we've come too far to back down now. Every challenge we've faced has brought us closer to this moment. Let's finish what we started." The room erupted in applause, the team's resolve hardening despite the odds. In the midst of the chaos, Amara received a cryptic email from an anonymous sender. The message contained a link to a private server hosting confidential files labeled Project Override. The files detailed a secret initiative by Argus Strategies to manipulate fuel prices and restrict market access for competitors in operation that had directly targeted Elevate Air. Sierra and Elena immediately verified the files, confirming their authenticity. This new evidence was explosive, implicating not only Argus but also several major airlines and regulatory officials in a conspiracy to stifle competition. "This could change everything," Sierra said, her eyes wide with urgency. "But it's risky. If we go public with this now, they'll come at us harder than ever." Amara stared at the screen, her mind racing. The timing of the leak was suspicious. Someone within the system wanted to sabotage Argus, but their motives were unclear. Still, the evidence was too valuable to ignore. "Prepare a statement," Amara said finally. "We're releasing it. The public deserves to know the truth." The release of the Project Override files sent shockwaves through the industry and beyond. News outlets dissected the revelations, highlighting how Argus had systematically manipulated the market to crush competition. Public outrage reached a fever pitch, with demands for immediate action against those involved. Protests erupted nationwide, with consumers and activists rallying behind Elevate Air. Social media campaigns calling for justice went viral, and several lawmakers who had initially been skeptical of Amara's claims began voicing their support for reform. In Washington, the coalition worked tirelessly to leverage the momentum. Elena and her legal team filed formal complaints against Argus and its collaborators, demanding swift penalties and regulatory changes. Meanwhile, Amara continued to lead by example, meeting with displaced workers, holding press conferences, and reassuring Elevate Air's passengers that their safety and trust remained her top priorities. Despite the growing support, the opposition fought back viciously. Malcolm Drake resurfaced, granting a televised interview in which he accused Amara of using the leaks to deflect from Elevate Air's own failings. His defiance only fueled the public's anger, but it also highlighted the resilience of those who sought to maintain the status quo. The day of the committee's ruling arrived, and the atmosphere in Washington was electric. Amara, flanked by her coalition, entered the congressional chamber to a standing room-only crowd. Reporters jostled for position, their cameras capturing every moment as the committee chair began reading the findings. The evidence presented demonstrates widespread corruption and anti-competitive practices within the aviation industry, the chair announced. This committee recommends immediate regulatory reforms, including stricter oversight of lobbying activities, transparency in pricing, and protections for emerging competitors. A wave of relief swept through the chamber, but the chair wasn't finished. In addition, we are referring the conduct of Argus Strategies, Skyfront Airways, and other implicated parties to the Department of Justice for criminal investigation. The room erupted in applause as the weight of the announcement sank in. It was a historic moment, not just for Elevate Air, but for the entire industry. As reporters swarmed her outside the chamber, Amara spoke with a mix of humility and determination. This decision isn't just a victory for Elevate Air, it's a victory for everyone who has ever been silenced, overlooked, or underestimated. But this is just the beginning. Real change will take time, and we'll be here every step of the way to ensure it happens. That evening, as the adrenaline faded, Amara found herself alone in her office, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. She thought about the humiliation she had faced on that fateful flight, the sacrifices she and her team had made, and the countless lives her work had touched. Rodney knocked gently on the door, breaking her reverie. "You did it," he said, a rare smile spreading across his face. "I hope you're letting that sink in." Amara chuckled softly. "It doesn't feel real yet, but we couldn't have done it without everyone who believed in this mission." Rodney nodded, then hesitated. "You've built something incredible, Amara. But now it's time to think about what's next for the airline, and for you." His words struck a chord. Amara realized that while the fight had defined her for so long, she couldn't let it consume her future. There was more to build, more to dream, and more to achieve. With the ruling in hand and public support at an all-time high, Amara knew the real work was only beginning. Elevate Air wasn't just a company anymore, it was a symbol of what could be achieved through resilience, integrity, and unity. As she stood on the tarmac that night, watching an Elevate Air plane take off under a sky full of stars, she whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." The morning air was crisp as Amara arrived at Elevate Air's flagship terminal for a highly anticipated press event. The atmosphere was charged with excitement and nerves. For months, Amara and her coalition had fought tirelessly against corruption and adversity, and today marked a culmination of their efforts. The press event had been organized to announce Elevate Air's latest milestone, a landmark partnership with global aviation leaders to implement sweeping reforms in the industry. It was more than a business win, it was a triumph of values, integrity, and resilience. As Amara stood backstage, waiting to address the crowd, Sierra approached her with a rare smile. "They're ready for you," she said. "And for the record, I've never been prouder of anyone in my life." Amara hugged her best friend, feeling a swell of gratitude for everyone who had stood by her through the journey. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped onto the stage. The crowd erupted into applause as Amara approached the podium. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for headlines worldwide. Standing before a sea of reporters, activists, and industry leaders, she began her speech. "This journey began with a single humiliating moment," Amara said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I was told that I didn't belong, that I wasn't worthy of the same respect and dignity as others. But that moment became the catalyst for something much larger than myself." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Today, Elevate Air is more than an airline. It's a movement, a testament to what's possible when we refuse to accept injustice, when we dare to challenge the status quo, and when we choose hope over fear." The audience hung on her every word as she outlined the reforms the coalition had secured: transparent pricing models, stricter regulatory oversight, and industry-wide commitments to equity and sustainability. "These changes are just the beginning," Amara continued. "They won't undo the harm that's been done, but they will set a new standard, a foundation for a fairer, more inclusive future. And I promise you, Elevate Air will continue to lead that charge." As she finished, the crowd rose to their feet in a standing ovation. The moment was both cathartic and triumphant, the culmination of years of struggle. After the event, Amara mingled with attendees, many of whom were eager to congratulate her. Among them was Regina Cole, the former Liberty Airlines CEO who had become a quiet ally. "You did it," Regina said, her voice warm with admiration. "You've changed the game for all of us." Amara smiled. We did it. This victory belongs to everyone who believed in something better. As they spoke, Malcolm Drake approached. His presence drew murmurs from nearby attendees, but he raised his hands in a gesture of peace. Miss Johnson, he began, his tone surprisingly measured. I came here today to offer my congratulations. You fought a battle I never thought you could win, and I underestimated you. That was my mistake. Amara regarded him cautiously, unsure of his motives. Why are you really here, Malcolm? He sighed, a flicker of something like regret crossing his face. The truth? I'm here to learn. You've built something extraordinary, and I see now that the future belongs to people like you. If there's ever a way I can help, not as a competitor, but as an ally, I hope you'll consider it. Amara's first instinct was to dismiss his words, but she caught herself. Change didn't happen by excluding those willing to evolve. We'll see, Malcolm, she said, her tone firm but open. Actions speak louder than words. Later that evening, Amara returned to Elevate Air's headquarters, where her team had gathered for a private celebration. The mood was jubilant, with laughter and cheers echoing through the office. Rodney McAllister raised a glass, his voice booming over the chatter. To Amara, the woman who took on giants and showed us all what's possible. The room erupted in applause and clinking glasses. Amara smiled, feeling an overwhelming sense of pride and gratitude. As the celebration continued, Sierra pulled her aside. So, what's next for Amara Johnson? Sierra asked, her tone teasing but curious. Amara looked out the window at the glittering cityscape, her mind racing with possibilities. I'm not sure yet. There's so much more to do for Elevate Air, for the industry, and for the people we've inspired. But tonight, I think I'll just enjoy this moment. Sierra grinned. You deserve it. As the night wore on, Amara slipped away to the tarmac, seeking a moment of solitude. She stood by an Elevate airplane, its teal and gold logo glinting under the floodlights. This was more than an airline now. It was a symbol of resilience, of standing tall in the face of adversity, and of daring to dream beyond what seemed possible. As she watched a plane take off, its lights disappearing into the night sky, Amara felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced the worst and come out stronger. This is just the beginning, she whispered to herself. The journey that had begun with a humiliating moment on a plane had transformed into a legacy that would inspire generations. The weeks following the public hearings marked a seismic shift in the aviation industry. Federal regulators announced sweeping reforms inspired by the evidence presented by Amara Johnson and her coalition. Argus Strategies was officially dissolved, its executives facing criminal charges for corruption and collusion. Skyfront Airways, now synonymous with deceit, saw its stock plummet and its CEO, Malcolm Drake, forced to step down. Elevate Air emerged not just as a survivor, but as a pioneer. The airline's commitment to equity, innovation, and sustainability set a new standard for the industry, attracting record-breaking bookings and partnerships. Passengers flocked to the airline, not just for its service, but for what it represented: hope, integrity, and the promise of a better way. Amara's achievements captured the world's attention. She was invited to speak at international conferences, her words resonating far beyond aviation. Journalists and historians chronicled her journey, and universities clamored to include her story in leadership courses. One afternoon, she received a letter from a young woman named Nadine, a student at a historically black college in Georgia. Dear Miss Johnson, Nadine wrote, your story has inspired me more than I can say. I'm studying aerospace engineering, and every time I doubt myself, I think about how you stood tall when the world tried to bring you down. Because of you, I believe I can change the world too. The letter moved Amara to tears. It was a reminder of the ripple effects of her journey, the countless lives she had touched by refusing to give up. 1 year after the hearings, Elevate Air celebrated the launch of its newest route, a transatlantic flight connecting underserved communities in the U.S. to Europe. The milestone was marked by a gala attended by dignitaries, activists, and industry leaders. In her speech that night, Amara reflected on the road she had traveled. When I look back, it's hard to believe how far we've come, she said. This journey wasn't easy. It was filled with challenges that tested us in every way imaginable. But through it all, we held on to one simple truth. Change is possible when we refuse to settle for less. She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. Elevate Air is more than an airline. It's proof that when we work together, we can build something better, something that lifts everyone. And this is just the beginning. Despite her success, Amara knew she needed to find balance. The relentless pace of her work had taken a toll on her personal life, leaving little time for herself or her loved ones. During a quiet weekend at her family's home in Louisiana, she shared her thoughts with Sierra. "I've been thinking about stepping back," Amara admitted as they sat on the porch, sipping iced tea. Sierra raised an eyebrow. "Stepping back? You? That doesn't sound like the Amara I know." Amara smiled faintly. "I'm not talking about leaving. I could never do that. But I've spent so much time fighting that I've forgotten how to live. It's time to let others take the lead sometimes. I want to travel, spend time with family, and figure out who I am outside of Elevate Air." Sierra nodded, a look of understanding in her eyes. "You've earned it. And don't worry, your legacy is in good hands." In the months that followed, Amara began transitioning more responsibilities to her leadership team, ensuring that Elevate Air could continue to thrive without her constant presence. She appointed Rodney McAllister as Chief Operating Officer, knowing his experience and integrity would guide the airline into its next chapter. She also worked closely with a team of young leaders, mentoring them and sharing the lessons she had learned. One of those leaders was Nadine, the aspiring aerospace engineer whose letter had touched her so deeply. Amara offered her an internship at Elevate Air, setting the stage for the next generation of innovators. Under Amara's leadership, Elevate Air continued to grow, expanding its reach and impact. The airline became a model for ethical business practices, influencing industries far beyond aviation. But Amara's influence wasn't limited to Elevate Air. She founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to fostering diversity in the transportation and technology sectors, providing scholarships and mentorship to underrepresented youth. Her work became a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of lifting others as you rise. Years later, Amara took a quiet flight aboard an Elevate airplane, a journey unlike any she had taken before. As she gazed out the window at the endless expanse of sky, she reflected on how far she had come since that fateful day when she was kicked off a flight. That moment of humiliation had become the catalyst for a movement that reshaped an industry. She had turned pain into power, adversity into opportunity, and a dream into reality. As the plane soared above the clouds, Amara smiled, a deep sense of peace washing over her. She had not only changed her own life, she had elevated the lives of countless others. "This is just the beginning," she whispered, the words echoing in her heart. Thank you for following Amara's incredible journey. Her story reminds us of the power of resilience, integrity, and vision in the face of adversity. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring narratives like this one. And be sure to watch our next video, where we explore the untold stories of trailblazers who changed the world. Let us know in the comments what part of Amara's journey inspired you the most. See you in the next video.